Okay, so, like I said, today we're going to look at mathematically how to handle what we've been doing, and we're going to use a model that most people find helpful. We're going to use a sort of a little trick, a tool called a Punnett square to help us do these. So if you're not a great algebraic mathematician, don't worry. You don't need to be for this course. If you are a great algebraic mathematician and you want to just ignore the way I teach you today and just do it as an algebra question, go nuts. Don't let me stop you. But anyway, here we are. Lesson 2.1. Correct? They just, what did teachers say? Just seeing if you're paying attention. Monohybrid crosses. And we'll see how time goes. We might work our way up to dihybrid crosses today. Usually I give it a rest and we just do the monohybrid cross on the first day and we'll build up to dihybrid crosses later. But what we're going to do here is today we'll learn how to model genetic inheritance in sexual reproduction. While considering a single trait, hence the mono in monohybrid. Okay, I want to quickly define a term, a few terms actually. We used these last class, but I want to just redefine them, make sure we have the sense. So we know our traits are stored in what? In the cell? The DNA. Very good. In the DNA found in the nucleus of each cell. So, for example, if we look at, we had our plants, right? And we were looking at, and look at my beautiful pea plants, which don't make any sense from a plant perspective, but that's okay. If we were looking here, if we zoomed in close enough, you've looked at plant cells before, right? You know, you'd see these kind of cells that look like this, right? And inside those cells, you would find the nucleus, which contains the DNA, right? And if you zoom in there, you know that DNA, at least at some points, kind of looks like this, right? I will label these for you. This is a plant. These are plant cells. And this is DNA in the nucleus. If we go one step further and look at the DNA sort of like this, with that stereotypical thing there, a section of that DNA is called a gene. All right. So the section or portion or segment would really be the best word. So the section or portion of a DNA molecule that controls a single trait is called a gene. Does that poorly drawn diagram kind of make sense? Mm-hmm. Okay. Now, it's important to keep in mind that there are about 100,000, depending on how you count it, there's about 100,000 different genes in your DNA. Lots of genes. Oh my. There's lots of individual traits that are controlled. And in fact, a single gene can control several traits, many traits, in fact, which we don't need to worry about that complexity here. Yeah?
Why would it depend on how you count?
Take grade 12 biology. I don't have time to answer that now, just take grade 12 biology. It's complicated. And then we want to say this. Many genes have more than one version. Which code for variations of that trait.
Does that say controls? DNA molecule that controls?
Yes.
Okay.
You know what? I think it looks lovely, and I don't know why you're bothering me. I know nothing about what you're speaking. All right, so I'll give you a moment to copy that down, but many genes have more than one version, which code for variations of that trait. The example we looked at Friday was that there are two different versions of the height gene in pea plants. One version causes them to be tall, one version causes them to be short, and we say that those are different alleles of the same gene. It means it's in the same spot in the DNA, it contains the same basic information, but there's some variation, there's some change between them, which means that you end up with two different traits. But not two different traits that have nothing to do with each other. It's not like one of them makes the plant tall and the other one makes it start singing opera when you walk by. They relate to the same thing. They're both related to tallness, but one gives you a tall variation, one gives you a short variation. Another example is like here. There's a single gene that controls the seed color in pea plants. It has two alleles. And they are big Y, which codes for yellow seeds. By the way, in a pea plant, the seeds are what we normally call the peas, right? Like those are the seeds of a pea plant. So you've probably seen yellow beans, right? That have yellow peas inside. And then the other one that you've almost certainly seen is green. And we actually code for that with a small y. And does anyone remember the reason why? We're about to write it. But why would I make the short form for both of these a Y? That seems a little strange. Kate Odette.
The lowercase is the recessive, and the uppercase is the dominant.
That's exactly correct. Can somebody else tell me what that means? That's totally true. Yep. Yep. And by bigger, we mean what? Because it's weird. It's a weird concept. Do you want to take a crack at?
Like more dominant.
More dominant, which means what? That's good. Like I'm not trying to be difficult here. We're using the words, but what do they mean? Yeah. The gene comes through more. We're getting there. What's it mean to come through? Overpower what? Good. Very good. Very good. It overpowers the other gene, which means if you have a case where both genes are both, and this is where we got to be careful. They're the same gene. Right? They're the gene that controls plant colors. So we want to watch our use of language. It's not more powerful than the other gene. They're the same gene. It's more powerful than the other allele, more powerful than the other version of that gene. One version of the gene says make green seeds, another one says make yellow seeds. But the thing is, that's the next thing we're going to write, how many copies of this gene does every pea plant have? 2. This is Mendel's big discovery, right? That we always have 2 copies of each gene. We are what he calls diploid, but you don't need to worry about that word just yet. Though you may remember it from grade 10 science. So, since sexual organisms have 2 copies of each gene, there are, in this case, 3 possible allele combinations, and we have a word for allele combinations. Does anyone remember that word? We introduced it last time, and it's a good one, actually. This word is pretty logical. Genotype. Very good. So there's 3 genotypes, which again just means types of genes, right? That's a nice, easy one to remember. What are the 3 possible combinations here? You could be, big Y, or you could be, small y, absolutely, or mixed breed, 2 of them. And we're going to introduce you to some new terminology here. We're going to remember that we call this the dominant gene, and we call this the recessive gene. And not every gene has multiple alleles. And as we'll learn, there are other possibilities than just dominant or recessive, but this is the most common arrangement, that one gene will be dominant over, or one allele will be dominant over the other. In which case, we're going to have some terminology here, because that means that this version of the cell has 2 copies of the same dominant gene. This one has 2 copies of the same recessive gene. This has 1 of each. So we're going to learn a new term. Instead of saying purebred and mixed breed, which A, isn't very technical, and B has some weird kind of vaguely eugenics overtones, we're going to start using the proper terminology. And the proper terminology is that when the 2 copies of the gene are the same, we refer to them as homozygous. And obviously you could either be homozygous dominant, as seen here, or your genes could be, your genotype could be homozygous recessive. And if you break homozygous down, zygote is what we call a sex cell. So basically the 2 sex cells will be the same homozygous sex cells. So when this individual goes to make sex cells, they'll be the same, and they'll both contain the dominant copy. This person, when they go to make sex cells, they'll be the same, and they'll contain the recessive. And if homozygous means the 2 copies of the allele are the same, then what will the term be for 1 of each? Heterozygous. Very good. Exactly right. Hetero is the prefix that means other or different. So, heterozygous. And obviously you don't say heterozygous dominant or recessive because you're both, right? Now keep in mind that if those are what we call the genotypes, the traits associated with each are called, did we use the other word? I don't know if we did yet or not. Did we not? The traits associated with each genotype is referred to as its phenotype. From phenos, which means appearance. So genotype is the type of genes it has. Phenotype is what its appearance is. Type of appearance. So the traits associated with each genotype are the phenotypes. And so, if we went back to the previous example where we had the homozygous dominant, what would the phenotype be there? Big Y is homozygous dominant. That's its genotype. What would its phenotype be? What kind of seeds would it have? Yeah, yellow seeds. Good. What about big Y, little y? What's our term for that again? What's its genotype? Sorry, I got to be honest, I'm old and I couldn't hear any of that. Huh? Because if we put a hand up and then talk loudly, that would really help me right now. Not homozygous, because homo means same, and here these are different, so the term will be heterozygous. Good.
Yeah, she said that.
Sorry?
That's what she said.
I said that.
Oh, I thought you said homozygous. I'm sorry. Again, old. Hearing, not good. Years of ignoring students has led me to have trouble paying attention. Anyway.
We know.
What will this one's seeds look like? What will its phenotype be? Yellow seeds. Because again, even though it has both alleles, one allele is dominant over the other. Oh, look at me going cursive for a second. Sorry. You know, that's a nice, easy cursive word to read, though. I don't feel the need to change that. And little y, we would give what genotype? What do we call that genotype?
Homozygous recessive.
Homozygous recessive. Good. And what color seeds would they have? What would the phenotype here be?
Green.
Very good. Green seeds. Okay. How's that feel? Not too bad? These are what we call the genotypes. And when I ask for the genotype, you could say either. If you prefer to say the genotype is big Y, that's cool. Nothing wrong with that. Or if you want to say the genotype is homozygous dominant, that's fine too. You could use the word to describe it, or you could just give the two symbols. Either one is fine. And then what do we call these? Oh, and I totally switched my color scheme for those. Sorry. We call them which? Phenotypes. Very good. Okay, so that's a lot of new just language, right? We have the term gene, which you've probably heard before, but you haven't used formally, right? Like you haven't used its formal definition. And then we have different versions of the same gene, which we call what again? Alleles. Good, right? So if the gene controls seed color, the alleles might code for yellow seeds or green seeds. If the gene codes for red blood cell shape, one gene might code for regular cells and one might code for sickle cells, which is a disease you can get. Those are two alleles of the same gene. Your hair color is actually controlled by a few genes, but if we pretend it's just controlled by one, you could have an allele for brown hair, an allele for black hair, an allele for kind of red hair, and different versions of the same gene. Same with eye color. It's actually controlled in a few different places. There's a few genes associated with it. Human things are often hard to look at because there's usually a few genes involved in all of our traits. We're very complicated. We're going to look at one example in a couple minutes that happens to be controlled by just one gene, which is kind of nice. Any questions about that? Can we do an example then? So now let's actually do a cross. So we will say EG1, exempla gratia 1, a monohybrid cross. Okay, and let's say this. If a homozygous recessive homozygous recessive would be what color? Green. Pea plant is crossed with, which is a euphemistic way of saying reproduces sexually with, is crossed with a plant that is heterozygous seed color. what are the genotypic and phenotypic frequencies of the F1 generation? Oh boy, more words.
Do they have to capitalize?
No, not necessarily. I'm just drawing attention to them. Like, as words, they're not written as all caps. I'm just trying to draw attention to new words for us. I'm about to highlight them. Genotypic frequency just means how frequent is each possible genotype. And phenotypic frequency just means how frequent is each possible phenotype. In other words, how common is each combination of genes and how combination of alleles, rather, and how combination is each possible color. All right, so we're going to use a new tool here called a Punnett square. A Punnett square. So we will solve using a Punnett square. That is too light a blue for what I'm looking for here. Well, that's ridiculous. I can't go back and forth between uppercase and lowercase. And the basic idea is this. You want to make a little grid. Just make a little grid. And I'm going to put it down a little bit because we're going to put a little bit of explanation up above. But basically, you just want to make a 4-square box, but then with a little space to the left and a little space above. That's all. Just a nice little... Doesn't have to be perfect. Mine's kind of a mess. Punnett. A Punnett square. You know, I don't love that. I'm going to try again. Can I try again? Try and stop me.
Is that a U or an O?
That's a U. Punnett, not Ponet.
Oh, it's a U?
Yes. Whoa, that looks terrible. It's funny, my wife is taking a university biology class right now, and I was just helping her with this like a day ago. So I'm like freshly trained, I'm ready. So in this case, we have 2 plants that we're crossing. So we have basically, and it doesn't matter which is which at all in this case, but we have a homozygous recessive green plant, and then we've got a heterozygous for seed plant. And remember that the heterozygote, because, sorry?
Can you hand those out when you see those?
I would love to.
Thank you so much.
The heterozygote is going to be yellow because, again, in this case, what's the dominant trait? Yellow seeds. So, by convention, we put the mother, i.e. the maternal case up here, and in this case, the maternal is homozygous recessive. So what is their genotype? If mom is homozygous recessive, what am I putting in here? What does mom's genotype look like? Well, homozygous means the 2 alleles will be the same, and recessive means they're little. So mom is little y, little y. Does that make sense? We're just going to put that above the chart. So we have that reference there. And then on the side of the chart, we're going to put, by convention, the father. Now, here the question doesn't tell us, but that's okay, because these aren't, it doesn't matter for the purpose of the question. But here we put the father's gene, and if the word for belonging to mum is maternal, what's the term for belonging to the father? Paternal. Good. From pater, which is father in Latin, and matra, which is mother in Latin. So the paternal genotype. And in this case, we're told that the paternal genotype is heterozygous. So what's that going to be here? Yep. Big Y, little y. Good. Now, the reason I put that outside the table is that these are the regular cells of the mother. Does that make sense? These cells here that we're talking about, that's what would be on the DNA of every regular cell of the mother. And this big Y, little y, that would be inside the regular cells of the father. But we don't reproduce with regular cells, we reproduce with sex cells. They're called zygotes. And we'll learn how they're made in a later lesson. But in plants, what are the sex cells called? Does anyone know? You mentioned it briefly. I mean, you definitely know once you hear it.
Seeds and then the pollen.
Seeds and pollen, right? So seeds and pollen. So the maternal sex cells are pollens, or seed cells. And that's what we're going to put in here. In this row, we're going to put the genotype of the sex cells. And you're never going to write all over this again, but I just want to make sure you know that because sometimes people aren't sure what to put. Now, when this mother plant goes to make a seed, it doesn't pass on both copies of the gene. It passes on one or the other, and it's equally likely to pass either one on. So it'll either pass on, in this case, little y, or, and this is not very exciting, little y. Okay. So for mum plant here, that's not very exciting. But even still, it's important to do this step because it shows us that even though mum has 2 copies of little y, any of mum's sex cells are only going to have 1 copy. So in this case, they're both, no matter what, 100% of mum's sex cells are going to contain little y, which codes for what kind of seeds again? Green, right? Because again, the little means recessive, right? And so this case, recessive to yellow is green. On the other hand, when the father goes to make sex cells, in this case, pollen cells, these will be the genotypes of the paternal sex cells. And I'm going to use the term, I'll just say sex cells. That's fine. We'll go one thing at a time. We'll get to gametes. So, the sex cells, the gametes, in this case, pollen cells, in this case, will either be big Y, or they will be little y. Does that make sense? Oh, shoot, I put those in totally the wrong place. Sorry. Big Y or little y. Now, what that means is that there's 2 possible ways for mom to make a sex cell. There's 2 possible ways for dad to make a sex cell. And thus, how many possible ways are they for them to then procreate and produce a zygote, produce a new organism? 4 possible combinations. And that's what this chart, this Punnett square, will help you figure out quickly. And you don't have to do any math. Not really. I mean, we'll do, a little bit of math, but it's mostly visual. So now we can just fill in the chart. This would be what happens if this seed and this pollen end up together. And if that were to happen, what would the genotype of this particular offspring be? Big Y and little y. Good. Big Y and little y. Does that make sense? What about this spot down here? What will that be? Little y and little y. Okay, what about here? Big Y and little y. And what about this down here? Little y, little y. So I like this particular cross. It's an interesting one because when you have a homozygous recessive parent and a heterozygous parent, when they breed, half of their offspring are exactly like one of them, and the other half are exactly like the other. That's not what every combination ends up looking like, but this one's kind of fun. These heterozygous offspring, what color will they be? They'll be yellow, right? And what about these homozygous recessive? They'll be green. And so now we can discuss the frequencies. And this is the little bit of math. Does anyone know what frequency means in math? It has two meanings. We're going with the definition. That means how often or how common. That's right. Very good. So in this case, we'll look at the genotypic frequencies, which is just a way of saying genotypes. The possible genotypes would be big Y, big Y, big Y, little y, or little y, little y. In this particular cross, how many offspring are big Y, big Y? Out of every 4, we would expect none. 0 out of 4, and as a percentage, that is 0%. Good. What about big Y, little y? 2 out of every 4, which as a percentage is what? 50%. Good. And little y, little y? Very good. Yep. 2 out of every 4, which is also 50%. So the genotypic frequencies are 0, 50, 50%. 0% homozygous dominant, 50% heterozygous, 50% homozygous recessive. How are we doing? That's a lot of words. Genotypic, phenotypic, frequency, allele, gene, recessive, dominant. That's heterozygous, homozygous. A lot of words. We feeling okay? You'll find in biology there's a lot of words. A lot of language to kind of overcome as you're learning something new. Can somebody now tell me what the possible phenotypes are and what the phenotypic frequencies are? We know the genotypic frequencies are 0% homozygous dominant, 50% heterozygous, 50% homozygous recessive. What are the phenotypic frequencies? What are the phenotypes and how frequent is each? Yeah.
Well, they're only dominant.
Very good. Yellow is one phenotype, and green is the other phenotype. And what are the frequencies in this particular cross? Yeah. Which is it? 2 out of 4. Okay? And if I wanted those as percentages, what would that be? Good. So the phenotypic frequency in this case is 50-50. How's that feel? Is that kind of semi-okay? Take a minute and make sure you have that down. We'll get lots of practice with this. Boy, I would love to do a lab. Like when I was in university, I had a chance in a class to actually do some breeding. We used Drosophila, we used fruit flies, and we actually had a chance to do real breeding of them and see the traits of their offspring. And I took another molecular biology class where we looked at strains of yeast and we bred them, and we were able to actually look at the offspring traits. And so we were actually able to do some like genetic work. I don't have the ability and the budget and the time to bring in live specimens and have us do genetic work here. Some years I do an online simulation. It's kind of mildly lame. But some years I do that and some years I don't. But you can do this with real living things. It's hard to test these things with humans because it takes the average human an awful long time to breed, right? Fruit flies are good because fruit flies, you can breed a new generation in a week or so. Right? Pea plants, a few weeks, and you can have a next generation of pea plants. So it makes them easy to study. In animals, Drosophila melanogaster, the fruit fly, is like genetics 101. Because they're simple, they have lots of variation, lots of traits you can look at, and they were great for studying sort of animal genetics. Now, the flip side is you can do some genetics with humans because you can go back, and you're probably not going to go back in time and be able to look at genotypes. You probably don't have your ancestors' DNA sequenced, but we can at least look at phenotypes, right? You can look at how genes have moved along through your family, but for the human case, those can be pretty complex. So don't go home and be like, wait a minute, I have blonde hair, but you both have brown hair. I must be adopted. Like, it's not that simple, all right? It's not that simple. And I'm not saying you're not adopted. I'm just saying that is not proof that it is. You know what I mean? And likewise, if you've been told your whole life you're adopted and you're like, but I have the same eye color as both of you, what's going on? Right? Like, it's complicated. To say nothing of, I have a cousin who is adopted, and I swear she looks exactly like my grandmother, which isn't possible because she's not related to my grandmother. But like, I swear, it freaks me out. So, like, these things are complicated. Can we do another example?
Yes.
Okay. This one you guys are going to do. All right? But first, thumbs up. Give it to me. Go. Okay. I want you to look around the room. There are two distinct shapes when somebody does this. And there's some variation, but by and large, there are two distinct shapes, where some people's thumbs basically are straight. Oh gosh, I'm attempting to draw. Okay, you know what? Just shut up. I'm doing my best, okay? Just shut up. Shut up. Okay, anyway, I'm doing my best. It's the best I can do. Or you'll see this kind of thing. Okay, that looks disturbing. That looks utterly disturbing. That person had suffered some sort of horrible injury. Okay, just, I'm doing my best. I'm doing my best. They've had a cut. All right, there was an incident. They're seeking medical attention. Would somebody like to come draw these? Anyone? Okay, come on up. While I talk, you can come up and draw them. Okay, so
You got that MVP.
let's do a quick little count here. Does somebody want to keep count on the board? Give a thumbs up. And if it has a curve to it, if your thumb curves back, we say that you have a hitchhiker's thumb. And if yours stays basically straight, we say that you do not have a hitchhiker's thumb. Like, that would be considered straight. Like, obviously there's still a bit of curve to it. That's a whole different thing. We'll get to that. That's pretty straight, right? Like, if it does the curve back in on itself thing, I'd like you to stop doing that. It makes me uncomfortable. Ah! Okay, 1 second. Do it again. That felt more appropriate somehow. Does your other one do the same?
Yep.
That's amazing. Okay, we'll get back to that. Anyway, so that is actually a trait that is controlled basically by one gene, more or less by one gene. And nicely, it has a dominant trait and a recessive trait. Now, one thing you need to know, I'm going to tell everybody I drew this after, and I'm going to be so proud of myself.
Whoa, Alex, that's actually
That's
good.
sick.
Right? By Alex, you mean Mr. Orlando, because they're just seeing the live stream. That's the Alex. Let's try again. Wow, Mr. Orlando, you're doing a great job.
Wow, Alex, you're doing a good job.
You are chic. You guys are chic. You're just willing to sell poor Alex out for me. Except you. You said Alex, I heard. The rest of you are sheep. Sheep. Well, that's just not even being helpful. You should praise people in the... Could you do me a favor, Alex? Could you make that more distinctly hitchhikery? Could you really put, some mustard on it? Make it.
Okay. Hey.
Listen, if you're going to draw for me, let's make it good, all right? Okay, that's fine. Thank you. So, really, if you want to do the whole note, this is great. I'll just go in the back and sip a cup of tea. So this is controlled by one locus, a single gene, and it's found, it's got two alleles, a dominant allele and a recessive allele. And full disclosure, I always forget which is which, so I always Google it every time so I don't screw it up. I think the hitchhiker's thumb is dominant, but I could be wrong, so we're going to Google it. Because otherwise I forget. Yeah, what's up? Yeah, there should be some at the back. If there's not, let me know. Thank you, Alex. I really appreciate you doing art for me. That's it. Appreciate it.
If you need more in the future, I can help as well.
Yes. And for reasons that we'll talk about, you can't necessarily know which one is dominant just by seeing which is more common. Dominant doesn't necessarily mean more common, because if 99% of the genes out in the world are recessive, then even though it's harder to have the recessive trait because you have to have two copies, if most of the genes out in nature are recessive, then that's still going to be the more common trait, even though it's the recessive trait. So dominant doesn't necessarily mean more common. Often it means that, but it doesn't always mean that. You can't presume that. Okay, that's beautiful. Thank you. So this is called a regular and a hitchhiker's thumb, and we're going to look up if that's a recessive or dominant gene just right now. Just going to check the old here. Straight thumb is dominant. Hitchhiker's thumb is recessive. Got it. So, this is coded with big T, and it's just the straight or the normal. What? Coward. Look at a nice job I did. If I can do it, why can't you? Quiet. Nobody asked you. Double H? No. Double H? No. But wouldn't this be hitchhiker? Is it that? We're just going to do that. Anyone here ever hitchhiked? I hope not. You're too young for that. I've hitchhiked. I used to hitchhike. I always pick up a hitchhiker. You meet interesting people. You meet some real weirdos, but you meet some interesting people.
No, because you can pick up a serial killer. What are they
Well,
going to
that's
do?
an interesting
Like,
fellow.
here's the nice thing. Say I pick up a serial killer and I'm driving 120 kilometers. His options are fairly limited, right? I mean, I guess once I slow down. But I feel safer knowing that there's serial killers in the world, knowing that at least if they kill me, like do you know what I'm saying? I would suspect, I don't know, but I would suspect probably hitchhiking is a lot more dangerous for the hitchhiker than for the driver, for the most part, don't you think? Because, like, it seems to me in that situation, like, the hitchhiker, the driver really has a lot more power in that dynamic, right? So I don't know. Anyway, I've never been worried. Like, whatever. I've had a good run. And, like, I don't know. You reach a certain age where, like, I don't know. I'm not very easily made afraid by, like... And, like, the nice thing is, seeing as you're the one, like, if you drove up and you're like, this person's giving me a weird vibe, then you could just scoot on off, right? Just be like, oh, sorry, I forgot. You look scary. And then just drive off, right? Which would be rude, but, like, you know, you got to trust your instincts. I will say, you do have to trust your instincts. I would say in life, like, if something's making you feel unsafe, in the end, even if you're wrong and you're being a little rude, then the worst thing you've done is you've been a little rude, right? Whereas if you're right and you decide not to pay attention to yourself, then you could end up in a dangerous situation. So I think in life, if you're feeling unsafe in a situation, you know, just trust your instincts and keep on driving. Okay, so now, so this trait is controlled by one gene with two alleles. Two alleles. All right, so now, what will the genotypic frequencies and phenotypic frequencies be Yeah.
He wants to know what alleles are.
Can you remind me?
No problem. Alleles are the two different versions of a gene. So, for example, there's a gene here that controls the shape of your thumb. And then there's two versions of that. One allele, one version results in a straight thumb, which I can kind of fake like this. And another results in a hitchhiker's thumb. Yes, he did. Don't be discouraging.
Yeah.
We don't discourage.
Maybe a bit slow, but I'll get there.
Okay.
Can you please stop tapping?
It's the bickering for me.
I already thought of it. Thank you.
Why the double?
Does it matter what's the mother and what's the father?
It will matter very much for certain traits, which we'll learn about why later on. Because, as you know, people are biologically male and people are biologically... I shouldn't even say biologically. It's actually the wrong definition. As you know from the idea of phylogenetics versus biology versus physiology, people who are genetically male have a different, almost the exact same set of chromosomes, but they have slightly different set of genes than do those who are chromosomally female. Because males are missing a whole chromosome, and it's replaced by a weird little... basically nothing chromosome that's got like 3 genes on it, called the Y chromosome. Anyway, we'll talk all about. Sorry.
Said it means other in Greek. Or
True.
each other.
So I want you to do this for me. I want you to tell me, first of all, what the mother's genotype and phenotype will be in this case. The father's phenotype and genotype will be. And then make your little Punnett square. And it doesn't have to be little. You can make a big Punnett square if you want. Don't let me stop you. Who am I? Nobody, that's who. This is a guy wearing a shirt he bought at Costco, for God's sakes. You do what you like. It makes me insane.
That's what makes it very fun.
But it's ridiculous, right? Ridiculous? Yeah.
Do I have to draw the square?
Nope. No, if you can do it without drawing the square, you go nuts, you.
I'm really proud of those thumbs.
Good looking thumbs. Good looking thumbs. And you know what they say about good looking thumbs?
What did I say?
I have no idea what they say. I have no idea what they say at all. It just seems like a clever thing to say. Oh my goodness. Excuse me.
Mr. Linda, I've been on filling this unit now and I got a lot of drawing from you.
A lot. That's what you're here for, kid. I got a second tablet over there logged into the note, and just while I'm talking, you can do. That's actually not wrong.
That's actually not
Might make that happen. Yes.
Do you know what causes the brain to zone out?
I've been told my teaching.
Yeah, but
The brain is profoundly complicated, But I would just say, various factors. But tiredness is a big one. Focus is deep. There's a lot of studies that show the relationship between focus and sort of resting patterns. That people who are poorly rested have a much harder time focusing. And when you're a teenager, your body is supposed to be getting somewhere in the range of 10 to 12 hours of sleep a night right now, and you probably get what do you get? A typical night, 5, 6 if you're lucky.
Why are you able to sometimes speak while zooming?
Practice.
That
I
was amazing.
in university, I got pretty good at looking like I wasn't napping while definitely napping, right? Yeah.
Why does my body run better on 6 hours? I was switching because I was sleeping at 10 hours and I was waking up. I felt awful.
Yeah.
So I switched to 6 hours and I've been sleeping way better.
I don't know what to tell you. That's a good question, but I would say if you find something that's working for you, stick with it would be my advice. Because I'm not an expert. I'm not a medical doctor by any stretch, but because I've struggled with sleep myself. One thing I was told is that is an average, and like everything in biology, it's normally distributed. So some people just need less sleep. So if you're feeling good with the amount of sleep you're getting, and you feel well rested, then you're well rested.
I found I was waking up still exhausted.
that I function best on 9 hours.
There you go. That's what you should be getting.
Yeah, I tried most things.
I, for a few years, experimented with not sleeping and instead just having rolling naps throughout the day. And it actually wasn't so bad. So I would take a series of 20-minute naps. Every couple hours, I'd just take a little 20-minute nap. And I didn't hate it. Anyway. Sorry? Yeah, I was extremely productive. I didn't have a choice, right? I was busy. So sometimes...
You know what? It's a learning experience.
No, I've had basic and
Aspiration, you hope. You're not happy with them? Can I see them?
No.
Please? Please? We'll talk.
I'm ready here.
We'll talk. Anyway. Okay, with only 5 minutes left, I want to make sure we all get to the same place here. What's mom's genotype here if she's heterozygous? Yeah, big T, little t. And what would her phenotype be then? Straight thumb. Good. And what will Dad's genotype be here? Big T, little t, and he will have straight thumb. Okay. And then when Mom goes to make sex cells, her ova, which are what human female sex cells are, will either have what? Yeah, half of her eggs will have big T, and the other half will have little t. And when the father goes to make male sex cells, which are spermatozoa, sperm, they will be 50% big T and 50% little t. And then the offspring. Thus, if this sperm fertilizes that ovum, what would we get? Big T, big T. If this sperm fertilizes that ovum, we would get big T, little t. If this sperm fertilizes that ovum. Yeah, and by convention, we always write it with the capital first if it's one of each. I wouldn't mark you wrong if you did it the other way, but that's just by convention. And here, little t, little t. Let's fill in the phenotypes. What phenotype will we have here? Straight thumb, right? What about here? Straight thumb. What about here? Straight thumb. Good. And here? Hitchhiker's thumb. Good. So, what are our genotypic frequencies? Well, you could be big T, big T, big T, little t, or little t, little t. And what are the frequencies in each case? This will be 1 out of every, for a total of? Awesome. This one will be 2 out of every 4, which is 50%. This one will be? Awesome. And what about the phenotypic frequencies?
Straight is 3/4, which is 75%. And then the curved is 1/4, which is 4.
Hey, wow, oh my God, I'm right here, wow, oh my Lord. Note to self, be sad later, don't forget. Okay, that's good, I've made a note, I won't forget, that's good. Feel deep sense of betrayal, question life choices. Okay, well good, I'm ready.
Make it right on your hand so you can remember.
That's right. I don't want to forget. I don't want to forget to be sad about what you've... Sorry?
You just said I'm glad that you're prepared.
It's important. Be prepared. Scouts, right? How's that feel? Not too bad? I'm not going to give you homework today. We'll get a little bit of homework practice tomorrow. Figure you could use a rest. I've got unit tests here for you. I can't give them back to you yet. Because I still got some writers. Which reminds me, if you haven't written this thing, come talk to me. But if you want to come shout your first and last name at me and ask how you did, I will get your test and you can look at it. It's the best I